So if you like the idea of trading double tops, wouldn't a triple top be better? In many ways it is. So there is the thing called a triple top. In fact, it actually has its own name, which is a chart pattern is called head and shoulders because it looks like a person's head with their shoulders, it is what the pattern will look like. So it gets its own special name other than just triple top. It's a head and shoulders. And you'll see these support and resistance breaks here as far as with head and shoulders and how that forms. And you'll see the trends as far as how those develop. And again, head and shoulders is part of the reversal family of chart patterns. So instead of a continuation of the trend, you're looking for the trend to reverse and go in the opposite direction that it originally was headed before it headed into this head and shoulder patterns. So if we look at this pattern here of our prices, and do you see a head and shoulders? That's a little trickier, but do you think of the top part maybe as the head where you might put a face, and then do you see a head and shoulders? In fact, let's put a face there. There we are. We're happy. There's our head, and then you can see the pointy tops. Those are the shoulders, right? So that's the head and the shoulders. So numbers 1 and 3 there are the shoulders, and number 2 is the head. And you basically got 3 tops rather than a double top, right? 1, 2, 3. They're not all equally. You know how the double tops, they had to be within 4% of each other? So 1 and 3 would be within 4% of each other, but you have this kind of middle one that forms an even peakier or head on the triple top. That's why it's a head and shoulders. And it's rarer than double tops too, by the way. So this is why when you see head and shoulder, it's a strong indicator because it's a very rare type indicator. And you can see we're in an uptrend coming into the head and shoulders, by the way. So you'd have a strong uptrend moving into it, and then it forms this, movement. It's a head and shoulder pattern. So how do we look at this? How do we trade on this? So if you look at it, you can see we've got the uptrend, and the confirmation line is in the head and shoulders is called a neckline because again we're talking about body parts. So it's called a neckline. It also, in effect, is a support line, right? Our prices are going to bounce off it for a little bit before they break through. When the neckline is broken, that's when the pattern is completed. And you can see what's happening here is we have our uptrend, and we don't have a confirmation line yet, by the way, because we're just in this uptrend, but we reach this first part of the shoulder. In fact, that first shoulder on the left-hand side, if you're facing the person, you don't even know it's a shoulder yet because the pattern hasn't fully developed, right? But you do know it's going down from that peak down a little bit. So it's gone down. A new trend hasn't formed, but it's definitely some temporary downward price movement. But then it bounces back up and goes past that first shoulder and goes right up. Again, it's to what's later going to become the head. We don't know it's a head at this point either because we might think, oh, it's just a continuation of the upward trend. We had a little pullback. Now we're going back up, and maybe we'll keep going upwards. We don't know it's a head yet. But now it's reversed back down in forming this pattern, and it's come down and gotten within 4% of that neckline. So now we're looking at, and we might say, oh, we might have a double bottom here, right? Because it's approached and hit that support line twice. But it's a little bit odder because we have that peakiness. A double top, or excuse me, a double bottom, wouldn't be as peaky it would form a W, but you could say a double bottom is forming actually. But it doesn't go back up, it goes up to the shoulder part, and that's where you've got kind of this triple top part, right? It's looking at it, and you can see the head, you can see the 2 shoulders, and when it makes that turn at that second shoulder, now you can actually see the pattern, and that's where you're really watching that support line, that confirmation line, and you're watching for it to break through that pattern. That would be the pattern is completed. And so that's what completes the pattern. So to be really ready to sell in this case, because it's an upward trend, you bought, let's say, earlier in the trend, and now you want to sell and book the profits that you had earlier in the trend before it breaks through that confirmation line and goes back into a true downward trend and maybe starts eating away at all your profits. So that's when it's kind of fully formed on that, is the idea of a head and shoulder. It looks like a head and shoulders. You could do the opposite of that, which is called inverse head and shoulder. Maybe the person's like doing a handstand. But you can see on the far left, we're in a definite downtrend, and we can see how the shoulders and the head do the same thing where they form, but it's now the opposite way. So you have to kind of use your imagination to see that head, the peak there of the head and the 2 shoulders. And the idea of this pattern is this is a great buying opportunity because the neckline, which is your resistance line, has been broken, right? It's tried to break through at the shoulders before. It didn't. In fact, in the middle, it had a big, deep drop. So this maybe was showing a pretty strong downtrend, but those shoulders kept touching those peaks. And when it tries again for that third time, see, once it approaches the third time to that neckline or that confirmation line or that resistance line, that's basically your triple part of this inverse head and shoulder. Same thing with the head and shoulder. That's your triple part of it as well. And this time it's going to break through. And once we see that breakthrough, we're like, this is a true inverse head and shoulder, a rare pattern, but it happens. And once it breaks through, now we know we should maybe look at that if an uptrend is fully forming, then we get in and we can now ride that uptrend going up. That's the idea of inverse head and shoulder. So you're trading the head and shoulder or inverse head and shoulder, depending on which way the reversal is going to happen, is the idea behind it.